everyone. Welcome to Live Out Loud Wednesday. Today is our first co-ed podcast that we ever had, and our topic today will be the domino effect. What are
Yes.
your thoughts on that, Devin?
Oh man. Well, I could just read off of the picture of what that says as far as the domino effect. The lady said, "I don't want a man." The daughter said, "I don't want a man," and the little boy said, "I don't need to be a man." And that just speaks volume. Just taking a look at the way that the world is right now, I feel like a lot of women kind of were forced into being single mothers. Nobody ever wants to be a single mother, right? But depending on the situation, I feel like a lot of women ended up having not so great outlooks on men. And that trickled down to the way that they raise their children into believing that men are bad. And then even with sons, making them feel like, the men are the bad. And some boys saying, "I don't want to be a man." And that's just my perspective, seeing that and seeing the world right now. So I let the next one go, but I know I'm gonna have some more to say. But
How about you, Veronica?
Yes, I actually grew up kind of with that state of mind in the house that I lived in. It started with my grandmother, and she was like, "Oh, men not nothing. They not this. They not that. They no good." I was taught this from a very, very, very young age. And the reason why she felt that way was not so much because of the man wasn't a good dad, but because of the bad relationship that they had, because their relationship didn't work out. She felt like men wasn't nothing. So as a child, I never understood if like this person was just like bad all the way around, or if it was just something that they had that didn't work out. So I was intentional as a kid, like not to adopt that train of mind. At the same time, it kind of gave me a very low standard for men, because what can I expect for them to do when my grandmother been telling me since a child that they ain't nothing, right? So it's definitely a real thing. I think that it is something that can be passed from generations to generations, that train of thinking. And so if you got sons that grow up in these households where there are no men in the family, then yeah, now you have sons being like, well, what is a man? Like, do I even want to be a man? I don't even know what a man is, right? So it's the domino effect for real. So that's kind of my input on that part of it.
I can relate to that. I grew up in a household where it's dominantly all women. We do have men in our family, but there is more women in our family than there is men. And the way I just was raised is like the woman was the stronger um, one in the family. It was like we all leaned on my grandma and Big Ma versus, the granddad and grandpa. They kind of just were around but not around, like they didn't have big roles to play in the households. And so whenever we got into any trouble, it wasn't that we were calling granddaddy, it was we were calling Big Mom. Big Mom was coming and solving the problems. Grandma was coming and solving the problems. If grandma couldn't solve the problems, then my mama solved the problems. And whenever they couldn't, then that's when they kind of just made the men stand up and just do what they needed to do. But the men just never just kicked in when they needed to. And so I think the mindset of growing up was that, I don't I don't want a man. I don't have to have a man to be able to live and to do things. And so even like when I had kids, I wasn't having kids thinking like I'm having kids to be in a family and creating a family to be with somebody for a duration of time. It was like, I want to have kids, so I'm going to have kids regardless of who their dads are. Because I knew at the end of the day that 9 times out of 10, or I felt as if that I was going to be the one taking care of these kids. And it was because of my upbringing had led me to believe that. I kind of just dismissed the man. I don't know, just an outlook and I guess a different perspective. Rashi, how would you say that you feel about that?
Give me a second. Go to the next person because I feel a way about this, but let me gather my thoughts, please.
You
All
good?
right. You good? We understand that this isn't an easy topic, and so a lot of people might feel some type of way about it, but this is a topic that absolutely needs to be done. Um, from us
Man,
women might feel some type of way and you men might feel some type of way, but if we don't have this discussion, it becomes a discussion like, you know, all of the other discussions in the world that we sweep under the rug and we don't talk about, and it never gets solved because both sides are wanting something but it's not getting done. Reggie, how would you say you feel about it?
um, I mean, I don't know because I wasn't showed that. Like I grew up with my grandmother and my mother. I mean, my grandmother, and like my grandfather showed me what a man was supposed to be, and not just for like with a woman, but just how to carry yourself in general and what he's supposed to do. And my grandma showed me what a woman is supposed to be. So I never really had no bad outlook on no like you know. So that's my
How about you, Ab?
So I grew up in my grandmother, my mother's mother. She always had this saying, "What can a man do for me?" So it was more along the lines of a man can't do nothing for me if a man can't provide for me, give me money, do this, that, and the third. And so my grandmother died alone, and by herself. And as far as the stigma or what they that generation of women, I should say, that generation of women going back to our grandmothers were really strong women. So me not having a grandfather through my grandmother, her having a husband, or my great grandmother not having a husband, because my great grandmother took part in raising me, um, made me actually feel the opposite. It actually made me want to be a wife. That's why I was a wife so early on and so young, because I wanted to change the stigma of what I was brought up around. My mother was a very strong force also, but my mom, one thing about my mom is my mom never she never male bashed. And so I didn't experience a lot of that in my household of you don't need a man. I was taught very early on from my mom, which was conflicting with my grandma, which was her mom. My mom's thought process was make that man's plate, do this for that man, take care of that man, do this, that, or whatever, no matter what she went through with my dad or my siblings' dad or whatever. She was just more along the lines of take care, cater, and nurture. So I kind of had like a mixture of both pulling and tugging at me. When it came down to academics and finances and money and things like that, I did have a very strong foundation to be able to be a woman and carry a lot more. And so I do feel like I dominated a lot of my relationships based off of that strength that I have as a woman, just that natural strongness about me that came from having a balance of both mentalities. Um, yes, I do have, I guess I'm capable of thinking both ways. At times, I'd like to say as I've gotten older that I very much so know that I need and what I need in regards to a man as opposed to when I'm younger, we do take heed to what we hear and how we're raised and what we're brought up around, and the fact remains is that no, I didn't grow up in a house where, it was like, F that man, that NIG, you don't need no man, and all he could do for me is this, that, and the other than my grandma saying it all the time. But again, I had that balance. If I would have grown up in a household with just my grandmother, my mentality might be a little bit different. um, I may move a little different in that aspect. I think the generation we live in right now is completely I don't need a man, or a lot of men are becoming or leaning more towards homosexuality. I mean, I'm gonna just be real because that's what they're branded around, and that's where they grow up around a lot of women. There's nothing wrong with that. For you are who you are. But what I'm saying is that what puts these things in place for us? What actually lays the foundation for us to be who we are? A lot of independent women out here are verbally independent, because that's what they know to be. And then they, in the same breath, they want to be a wife and this, that, or whatever, but they weren't really taught that that was something that they should be. They basically were just taught, or just basically were taught that they didn't need nobody. So when you do become a wife, then what are you? Overly masculine, extremely strong, taking over the relationship, not allowing that man to be a man because you physically, mentally think you want to be a wife, but that conditioning from our childhood or our past follows us. So that's my thoughts on that.
Now we're gonna piggyback to you,
Oh,
Rossi.
okay, I got a lot of thoughts on this. One, in this day and age, a lot of women are bad decision makers, and man, let's just keep it a buck. So they make these bad decisions and then don't take accountability for it. Therefore, that trickles down from, hence the meme from the mother saying I don't need a man, and a daughter saying it, and then a son saying I don't want to be a man. Also in our community, I think a lot of um, our girls are taught to be independent versus on how to keep a man and being interdependent. So versus other cultures. So I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts. And then if now getting to the little boy, I don't know. I think that's an era thing because I mean they're pushing the agenda, and you know what I'm talking about. But so that has a lot to do with it. The media, peers, so on and so forth. So that's my view on it. I mean, I can get real deep and go back to when welfare in the 70s and then cocaine era just, but I'm gonna keep it short and simple.
I think you should though, because I
I do
feel where
too.
you coming
Real
from,
Go
and I
issue.
ahead.
think I know
You
where
can
you're
talk-
going, and you need to talk about it.
That's what we're here for today, is to go ahead and air out the real truth of how it all began. It didn't begin just out of nowhere, just one woman saying, you know what, I don't need a man and I don't want a man. No, it became just how you said.
Well, in my mind, it was a 30-year plan. So, in the early 70s, I know welfare became real rampant to where, you pretty much the man couldn't be in the house. Okay, then we run through the 70s. Now we got the 80s. That same man is looking for work out on the streets. So what happens? Crack cocaine becomes popular in our community. So that man is either using or selling it. And either or he's messed up. So I mean, you can't really be in a child's life, either selling dope, not the way you're supposed to be, or using. Then boom, move forward. 1990s, we got Joe Biden introduced the what is it, 3 strikes. Now you're locking these same fathers up 15, 25, 30 plus years for life. So I mean that has a lot to do with it too. I mean, just beginning to take the man out the house, and then how do I want to say this? I mean, just you got the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. So that's a 30-year plan. You got the decade of the 70s, the 80s decade, the 90s decade, and then 2000s come. And now they're pushing the LGBTQRX. So in the end, man, it's just it's all about divide. Divide and conquer. Just, and I'm speaking in particular of our culture. I'm not speaking on any other culture, just Black folks. It's a lot of they did a number on us.
There's a lot of pain.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I mean, I honestly, growing up, I had a 2-parent household. So I always assumed that you were supposed to be married. When you end up dating and having children, and that's just what I grew up seeing my dad being the head of the household, and that was never a question for me until I started to get older. And then you start to have your own experiences with men. By me ending up being a single mother for a time, I ended up being that figure, for my children. I had to show them to be a certain kind of way with certain things. And the things that my dad taught me, I had to teach my kids, because their fathers were not around. Um, that was, my own choice of who I choose to have children with and the effects that came with that. But I think that is the main thing is, what generation does it start, and then who's able to stop it, if you can, right? Because it's just those generational curses that keep going on. If there's a mother who is scorned by all men that she's ever encountered, she's always going to send that energy to her children, her grandchildren, so on and so forth. So there's always going to be some type of a cause and effect that it has on the families. Are there ways that you can break that? Of course. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely ways that you can break that. But I think in society nowadays, no one's even focusing on breaking those curses. They're just, owning, being strong women. I don't need a man, and it is what it is, and just downing every man that they come across. I myself know some great men, from various different generations. So it's kind of disheartening when you see people who try to trash talk all men. Was I that woman at one time? Of course, because I hadn't encountered great men that I have encountered now. But that's the thing is, like, I think when a woman knows herself is when she's able to be that forefront for her family to say, I'm not going to go through what my grandma or my mama went through. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to make sure that I change things for my children. And I think that's the biggest thing is just recognizing what the issue is and fixing it. As far as what Rashi was saying about everything happening back in the 80s with the, welfare and, crack era and all of that. I mean, there's things that we can't erase. That was history. But it's more about like, how do we as a generation of 30, 40-year-olds, how do we change that for our future, for our children? So that we can, in turn look at our grandkids and be like, I did something right. I was able to break that cycle. I think that's the biggest thing that we're trying to bring awareness to is we know there's a problem in the world, but it's about putting a voice to it and then saying, okay, how do we all stand up and say, yeah, we see there's the kids who are out stealing cars. There's the kids who are out on drugs. There's the kids who are doing all these different things, but nobody's even sitting and saying like, hey, y'all need to stop doing that, right? It's just, we're just letting them ruin their lives.
Or there's no programs involved in it to be able
Well,
to help.
and from my perspective too, I think that is things that these kids are seeing. Like if nobody's modeling that we're going to respect a man, where are they learning to respect a man from? You know what I mean? So even if a man did try to step in and say something and do something, if they've never witnessed a mom, a auntie, anybody in their household having respect for a man as an authority figure, why would they do it? Their dad wasn't around for whatever reason. Their dad could have been a dad who actually wanted to be around, but because mom was bitter, they weren't able to be there for their kids. It's women that's like that too. So like you were saying, Devin, how do we? It's like I don't know if there's an easy fix. I don't, because it's going to take for somebody to stop the bleeding and stop the passing this stuff down. And if, say, you, for example, or myself, we want to be the people that stop that in our generation, who do we have supporting us? Because if we got a family that's not living like this, who do we have to support us? So guess what? We give up from doing it because there's nobody supporting us. We're like, well, forget it. My mama don't like him. Nobody likes him. They saying I'm stupid for listening to him. He trying to run my house. Don't nobody. You know what I mean? It's so hard. impossible, but it is so hard because it's like you're running uphill and you have nobody to help push you or pull you up. So I just wanted to speak to that. It's crazy, but it's a real thing.
Can I say something?
Mhm.
It's a statistical fact that if there's an active father in the household, your children, the percentage of your children be more successful was way up, along with being emotionally stable and other things. So in the end, we got to get back, to having a father in the house. There's nothing stronger than a black family. So you got the mom and the dad uh, working together, getting the kids, to where they got to get to. There's nothing stronger than that. So in the end, that's what we got to get back to. The problem is how, because I know just as well as Devin, Ebony, everybody, y'all see there's podcasts all over the place where black men bashing women, women bashing black men. Just, I mean, versus, everybody's talking about what's the problem. Well, we need a solution.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I do feel like we do need to be able to have our black men in our home to be able to raise our children. I do agree that it is very effective. My son's dad and I do not live together. We are not together. But the one thing that we did agree on that was a must when we decided that this was not working and that we needed to separate was that we continuously raise him together as a unit regardless of whatever that may take, and that we would never allow him to see us being broken in any type of way. I will back him 100%. He will back me 100%. And we are both fully involved on a daily basis with him so that he's not missing a beat. One thing that I know that affected him a little bit was then when we both decided to start dating other people. My son felt like he needed to pick a side, and so we allowed him to get the understanding that now you have a mom and a bonus mom and a dad and a bonus dad, and that it is okay. And so we do holidays and birthdays and all of that together as a family, whether it's at his dad's house or it's at my house. Do I like to go and be around his father and his significant other with my significant other? I don't. But for my son, I know that it needs to be done and it needs to happen so that he is okay and that he gets what he needs out of this. Because at the end of the day, I had to understand that it's not about me and his father. It's about him and his upbringing.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think if people would be able to like look past their feelings upon each other, if the relationship didn't work and they were able to work together for their kids, this world would be so much better, honestly. I myself have not had the greatest co-parenting situations prior to, my current relationship, but it, it is what it is, and you kind of just have to roll with the punches and try to be the best that you can. But I personally never tried to bash their fathers, just unintentionally. I waited till they got to be the age to see what it is on their own. That's one thing I devoted myself to say. I'm not going to be one of those black baby mamas that's bashing my baby daddies. It's just not, I mean, it's enough of that already. You know what I mean? Like, black men in America are already the number one suspect for everything. So why be, you know what I mean? Why be a black woman who's adding negativity to that image? You know what I mean? So that's just never been my thing. What is it? One thing that y'all think, and this is for everybody to answer. If you were able to change something from a specific era, it could be any era, it could be 80s, 90s, 70s, what would be one thing you would change in the world that you think would be beneficial for our children?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I was going to ask before you asked that question. I wanted to ask something, and let's get to the nitty gritty. Um, to be honest, a lot of, and again, we speaking just black parents. A lot of brothers, if they're not in a relationship with that woman, it's just a friends of with benefits or just after the club. Let's just get real. Are you really prepared for fatherhood? Like you're not going into it like you just having casual sex and she get pregnant. We all know it's a possibility you have sex, especially unprotected. So you're not really. It's not like y'all been together for a couple years. You love this woman, and y'all have a love child. No, you had sex casually. So that man ain't he ain't ready for that responsibility. That's just what it is. I mean, that's a lot of these you know you hook up with somebody, y'all know each other for a week or so, or it was y'all's at a lounge or a club, and y'all partake in sex. She gets pregnant. He ain't there for the baby. He wasn't that. It was just a night of fun for him. And she might not believe in abortion or whatnot, so she keep the baby. And now she's bashing the father because he never intended to be there in the first place because he wasn't. He was looking for a night of fun. But again, like I said, if you're an adult, or I mean, it happened to kids too. There's, what I'm saying, 13, 14-year-olds out here having babies too. You still gotta, take some responsibility for it. But in the end, the way you have the child is says a lot about how the child is going to be raised. If it's a love child, y'all in love, married, boyfriend or girlfriend for a while, and y'all planned on this, that I believe in most cases you have more of a successful success of raising a child. But just as one night stands, just casual sex, I think, to me, I believe that's where you get most of the bashing from. I don't know what y'all think.
I was a love child, and I was definitely a love child, and I I definitely didn't have that experience. So I'm probably one of the rare, if that's true, because my mom and my dad were high school sweethearts. My mom and my dad, they got married when my dad was in the Navy on a ship in San Diego in 1978. I say that to say my parents loved each other for what that love was at that time. But and my father was still having other children with other women, and my mom and on my mom even. And so therefore I say, when I look at my life, and though she didn't bash him, but he definitely wasn't there. So it's like, you're, for the most part, I see what you're saying, and I can agree to that. I'm just probably one of the few, like you said, most cases. So I'm probably one of the few. But it kind
Was
of
it
got me
really?
thinking.
Was you
Huh?
really a love child if your father was still going out creating other children? I'm talking about a strong love, like Miss me and you, baby. Ain't no.
But
How would he know
That's
that
what
at
I'm talking
15
about.
years old, though? How would he know that at 15 years old? Because you got to think about it. 21 was when they had me, but he married my mom. Like, he was in love with my mom. He married my mom. So at that,
Amen.
with that, when I say love child, I mean, yeah, they had issues during the marriage that caused other things to happen and him to do other things, but ultimately, I mean, they loved each other. I can't say that they didn't love each other, because from what I was planned,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? That's what I mean when I say love child, like, versus, just flipping up and smashing
Yeah,
and,
well,
you
yeah,
I
know.
can say,
I ain't talking about the Diana Ross Berry Gordy love child thing. I'm talking about something
I'm
strong.
done.
I can say though that there probably has been a 50-50 on that.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals probably do start off in a relationship thinking that this is going to work. I can say that I grew up in a two-person household. My mother and father worked together when I was born, and my father was around. But again, in the era that I was raised, my father is white, my mother is black, and it wasn't to be allowed. My father's family just was not having it. Like, what? You have a black woman? No. And so there was a lot against that, which then puts a lot of pressure on relationships. So I can understand how their relationship ended up going in turmoil. But it is what it is. Like, at the end of the day, how do we handle the breaking of the chains of that? And I don't think that it's just women that bash men. I think that men do it too. I mean, my first daughter was just like you said, Rashi. There was no intentions to have a child. I knew this man. He hung out with my family. We had an encounter one time. And yes, I ended up pregnant. But by the time I found out that I was pregnant, I was already too far along to do anything about it. So I felt like, as a woman, it was my responsibility to tell him that I was pregnant. Not because I wanted to be with him, but because I felt like that was the least that I could do.
Right.
He couldn't have kids, that he was sterile. I was good with that. Like I told you, it is what it is. I wasn't bashing him. I wasn't running around seeking for him to have to give me anything or anything else. I ended up going back to an ex, and we raised her for 2 years on our own as if she was my ex's. But then all of a sudden, here comes this man that's bitter and bashing, saying that this woman doesn't know who she was sleeping with, and demanded a blood test. And the blood test is what generated for him to have to pay child support, because she came back 99.99%. And when he had to pay child support, he was bitter about it, because he thought he was going to prove to the world that I was some kind of whore that was running around sleeping with random people, and come to find out I had been telling him the truth the whole time.
That child support is a huge factor. Oh man, that's a huge factor.
And then the child support ruined the relationship that he could have had with his daughter, because of course then he couldn't get any jobs, because every job that he had was taking child support, was taking every dime from him. So then he felt like it was all my fault, which, Noah, you said that you couldn't have kids, that you were sterile. I let you be free. You're the one that demanded that, because you wanted to do so much to prove that I was doing whatever that you had been already telling the world.
Right.
And
yeah, there's a lot of variables with it, like that. That didn't even come to my mind, but that child support is, yeah, I didn't broke up tons of homes.
Yeah. I
Do
got
you
a
ever want to
question
see?
for you. I got
You ever
this
want to see a
question.
Maury Povich show? Or not Maury Povich? Yeah. What's it? Jerry Springer show? Go to child support court. It's crazy up in there.
it is.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So when we talking about love children, right? Everyone's definition of love is different.
It sure is.
So Ebony's parents was in love.
Yeah,
Somebody
my
that's
parents was
only
married too.
somebody who's dating somebody for a couple weeks could be in love. You know, so it's like, I mean, it all depends on everyone's situation. I mean,
What your version of love is.
exactly. So it's
I
like,
can meet a guy tomorrow and be in love.
right. I love her.
I love you so much that when we had a baby, I'm putting you on child support so you'll never go nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you know
That-
what's funny? Let me say this. Now we're talking about all the situations where you know, it was someone who ended up having a child or whatever, and then it ended up being a bad situation. There are people who are actually in healthy relationships, loving relationships, and then a child comes along, and then it is just too much to
It's a
handle.
lot of responsibility.
And the love that they had is completely different, because they don't get time to spend with their, you know, significant other. They maybe don't get babysitters. These are all factors that turn in, you know, make a relationship different. I mean, thank God I have a babysitter, you know, who lives with me, so I don't have to worry about that. But there are some people who don't get that time. So it's straining on that relationship, to where the father or the mother in certain cases leaves, because they're like, I don't want to deal with all that. You know, the
Well,
cases may be more men leaving because they just don't want to deal with it. Maybe the mom, you know, is a whole different person. She done had a baby now, and she, you know, gained all this weight. That's a whole nother subject. You know, some men don't accept that. you know, they're like, I met you, you was 98 pounds. Now you 275. You know what I mean? And some people don't want to deal with that. You know what I mean? And they're looking at it like, nah, this ain't what I signed up for. And this baby we got, you know, keep crying and they just leave. So now we got this mother who tried to have a family, tried to do it the right way, and now she's, you know, dealing with that effect of this man was here and now he's not. And it could be a son that now she's trying to raise in the best image of her idea of what a man is. Because I will say, I'll be one of the first women to say a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man. Period.
Yes.
Point blank.
Talk to me now.
Right.
Period. Point blank. I have a son. I cannot teach my son how to be a man. Thank God his father is on here and in our lives, and I don't have to worry about that.
Good brother.
But I mean, there are a lot of women who have sons that think, oh, I can teach my son how to be a man. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you can do your best job of being his mother,
But you are not a man.
Teaching him the things that he needs to be independent in life. But you can't teach that boy how to be a man.
That's why I take a village.
And Father's Day is not y'all's day.
Yeah.
Father's Day is not y'all's day.
So what I was, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I don't believe in Father's Day because I feel like Father's Day is every day to me.
Every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we here.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? You get them ones that randoms. It's Happy Father's Day. I'm a mother, but I'm the father too.
Right.
No,
I guess what I was saying was children born out of a healthy relationship statistically is better for the child versus random. Yes, there's exceptions to the rules where it's a healthy relationship, and like you mentioned, Devin, something happened, the woman gained weight. Shit, the man might gain a lot of weight from stress or whatever, or eating too much. I don't know, you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And the dynamics change, but overall, I mean, statistically, that's what it is. When it's a 2-parent household, healthy household, that's the ideal situation you know want your child to be in versus random sex from Club Cancun or Gabby's or Cream.
Even if it was random sex, Rashi, if we were both in a grown mindset and we went off and we had random sex and we made a child and we are now mature enough to understand that we did this and now we need to do what's right, whether we're in the same household or not, I think that it could still be done. I mean, my son.
No, I ain't saying it. I'm just saying ideally that you would want the, you know, 2 people that know each other that's in a healthy relationship versus a random night at, you know, a bar or something. You just pick up a random female, y'all do it. 6 months later, you see her stomach big, you know.
Hey, and if you're mature enough, if you've seen me 6 months later and my belly's big, hopefully you're mature enough to be like, you know what?
But
hey,
let's be honest. There's not a lot of there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys not really that mature, especially in their 20s, early 20s,
Slim
17, 18.
No, not at all.
I mean, it's 40-year-olds that ain't mature, so
there's not a 20-year-old woman is mature enough either. But
true,
you know, I think that it's doable. I think that if we start all working together on showing that us women need to support our Black men more, and our Black men also need to support us women more. It's not a one-person role. It's all of our jobs to be able to support one another instead of always, you know, stomping on each other down. I think that the more men stomp women down, the more women think like, oh, I can do manly stuff, and so I can be a woman in a suit, which is not the reality of it. And so I agree exactly what Devin said. Like, I cannot teach my son to be a man. And I know that. I know that he needs his father. Like, I've now given him everything that I needed to give him. I needed to give him his humbleness. I needed to give him his loving, soft, caring heart. Now that he has all of the qualities that I needed him to have, now he is about to move off to be with his father. He will always still have a room in my home, and my home is his home, just like his father's home is his home. But he has to now spend more time there because now it's time. He's 13, about to be 14. I think that it's time for him to know the manly things in life. And I think that that's when that part is important. But I think that we all have a job to do here.
I agree with you, Davina and Devin, because she said it. People got to get out their feelings. Like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, we have to support one another as men and as women, whether you in a relationship or not. And I think that's where the change is going to come. Even if you have a baby with somebody, like Rashi was saying, right, and there was no relationship, still as a woman, don't badmouth that man in front of that child. I don't care if he is a deadbeat, but don't say that to that child. You know what I'm saying? Treat him like a man, even if he's not acting like one, and then maybe he will come into it, you know. But if we start early talking bad about these men, and maybe he not doing nothing, maybe he's everything that you saying that he is, but it's not for you to speak that into your child, you know. And maybe he will come around, and maybe your child tugging at his heart, you know, trying to have a relationship with him would make him want to be a dad. But if it's negative, 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 and that's vice versa, you know, and we have to start encouraging one another, whether it's there or not. You know, like speak things into existence. If you ain't a good dad, call him one anyway. Oh, you're gonna be a great dad. I just know it. Like, you know, it's like we have to, but I think that's the only thing that's gonna change it. You can't fight fire with fire. And as long as men are bad talking women and women are bad talking men, it's gonna be this vicious cycle, and we're not gonna get anywhere. So I've been just thinking the whole time y'all been talking, like, what can we do? I think it start with something just that simple, like encouraging one another and encouraging your kids. Like my kids' dad, they're active, and I'm grateful for that. We're not in relationships. At the same time, they live in totally different places, but they take care of their kids, and I'm grateful for that. Even when my kids don't call their dad or act like their dad don't exist, I'm like, hey, check on your dad. Just call him and see how he doing. You know what I mean? Just we have to encourage our kids to do that, you know. And it's hard as a mom because this is a lot of things I hear. Like I have family members who kids' dads are not active. So they like, I'm not about to force my kids to deal with their dad. I'm tired of my kids getting hurt. But this is the thing. We gonna hurt our kids too. It's okay when we hurt our kids, but when it's the dad, then we want to try to limit the amount of hurt that they feel. We can't do that. They are half their children just like they're half our children. And I think that as moms, we have to give them their free reign and let God work through the relationship. It's not for you to dictate. If they'll never work on their relationship or ever fix their relationship if we don't give them the room to do it. If you sever all ties, you remove the telephone number, delete them off social media, you never to talk to him. How do you expect something to come from that when there's no grounds to be built on? So that's what I think about that.
I
I agree.
100% agree with that.
They're not on my social media, but I agree.
I've made sure that with all of my kids' dads, and I have 4 kids, I have 4 baby daddies. It is what it is. It's not the greatest thing to hear yourself say, but unfortunately I do. I have 4 kids and 4 baby dads. I didn't always have a really good relationship with them, but I realized what important piece they did play in my kids' life. And I understood that time is more precious than money. So I didn't want a dollar. I wanted you to come and spend time. And so whenever I was upset, that was just something that I did within my own self. I never let the kids hear me bash their dads or say that they weren't anything, or this person didn't do this or anything like that. I wanted my kids to be able to have their own separate relationships. And so I always made sure that their fathers knew my address and my telephone number so that they could speak with their children. I always had my open door policy. To this day, all of my kids' dads come over just randomly. I still speak with them now. And now that my daughters are grown, my daughters feel like they weren't around a lot. And so that they think that they can talk bad about them. And so one thing as a Black woman that I make sure that I do is, no, we're not doing that. We only get one mom and we only get one dad. And so as long as I have breath in me, you will not be around me bashing your daddy, even yourself. Like you'll respect him regardless of how angry you are. It will never be a disrespect. We kind of gear together, and I like our relationship now, but I think that in order for us to get here, or the only way that we were able to get here was through time. Like We had to go through and run that clock out on all of the hurt and the bitterness and understand that. And so when we're younger, we don't understand that there's a lot of emotions and feelings that we don't even understand ourselves. And so it turns into a lot of bitterness. But once you grow older, then you start to realize that those things really aren't even that important, that the one thing that is important is time. And so had I had somebody to tell me that when I was in my 20s or even in my 30s, I think it would have saved me more. Even though I didn't bash them, I still carried a lot of like hatred in my heart. I still was angry. I still was hurt. And like I said the other day, like a lot of us misconstrue our hurt for anger. And so it's easier to say that I'm angry than it is for me to say that I'm hurt, especially in my younger years. And so I walked around always thinking like, or portraying myself to be as if I was angry. And really, I was hurt. I was hurt by the actions of all of them and how it all played out. Did I want to have 4 baby daddies? No. If I could have 4 kids with one man and it would have been great, I would have done so. But I think that it's important for no matter how old your kids grow, for you to always make sure that as you would teach them to respect adults, that to respect your father or your mother would be number one priority over everything else.
I agree. They still not being on my social media though.
I'm gonna say I just had a bout with it a couple days ago. I just had to come to a realization about myself with my own daughter. My daughter's birthday was Monday, and so I had to realize that I, for so many years, wanted to be mad for her because she's with her needs and things like that. She don't really care about none of it, but her father did not call on her birthday. And I believe that's the first time ever in her life. But what I had to think about what really burned me, what really got to me for a second. And it was the fact that it emulated exactly what my father does in regards to my birthdays as well. It had nothing to do with my daughter. It was all built up, pent up anger because I felt like I did to my daughter what was done to me. So the next day, and I didn't say nothing to him at all. And the next day came around, he texted me. I sent him some pictures of her the day before her birthday. And then he texted me back and said, I saw the pictures. I said, yeah, you missed her birthday. I know I worked late, something or yada, whatever. I didn't have no attitude, no whatever. I just said, all right. He said, well, I'm going to text her on her phone. I said, okay, well, I'm going to send her a video chat. Okay. Like, I'm past that point. But that sadness that I felt, I learned it was not about her. That was that little girl inside of me that knew that every time September 16th came around, that it may or may not lead to a phone call. And I might get a call on the 14th, like, oh, I knew one of y'all birthdays was coming. I knew your birthday was the 16th, the 15th. It took me back to a place of that versus her. Like, it wasn't about my daughter. And I actually learned that about myself this year. I don't care. I mean, she's 17 years old at this point. It's just like, that's how that he's gonna have to answer that and deal with that. That has nothing to do with me. But it wasn't about me. It was about my own experience and what I deal with, because next month I might not get that phone call, and I'm 42 years old right now. So it's more, that stuff be deep rooted and deep seated in inside ourselves. Again, that's my issue versus the whole a man ain't no good, a man ain't shit. I could be putting that into her based off of my own hurt. And a lot of women operate off of their own hurt from whatever it was that they went through. And that's where you have the whole, oh, your daddy ain't this, or call your daddy. And I bet you he ain't gonna do this, or your daddy this, or your daddy that. That comes from that pain oftentimes that they dealt with within their own lives, or women deal with within their own lives. And it's a sad thing, but I was really glad that I was able to sit down in my own thoughts and realize this ain't about Aaliyah. It's about you. This is you and your pain.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah,
So it is similar to what we're talking about because it's rooted in a male's disappointment.
correct.
So that's all it
Correct.
is. So if you really look at it, if you ask a woman who was the first man to disappoint you, more than likely it's going to be their father. That's just how it goes. I mean, unfortunately, I would say a large percentage of women have some at some point in life been disappointed by their fathers. And then it trickles down to relationships, the way that they view men, feeling like I don't need a man, feeling like a man is insignificant because it's like that number one person you wanted to love you, didn't want to disappoint you, disappointed you at some point. I had to, like, in my 30s is when I realized the very first person to disappoint me was my dad. I had my dad at the top tier, top tier. He could do no wrong. He could do no wrong. And he disappointed me simply by doing something to my mother, which disappointed me. So that gave me a different outlook on him. So it's not even necessarily you dealing with someone who's disappointing you or mistreating you. It goes back to what is your expectation? Like Veronica said, I didn't have a high expectation for men just based on what my grandmother taught me. If we have a low expectation for men, when they do things to us, it's easily to be like, yep, I knew he was going to disappoint me anyways. Girl, I knew he wasn't nothing. And then that's your outlook in life. You're never going to see someone actually being genuine or actually being able to be there to love you. You're never going to see it because you don't even want to give that person an opportunity, right? Think about how many opportunities we've walked past, that maybe we're supposed to be something in our life that we just were like, absolutely not. Nope, I'm not dealing with it. Nope.
Now, I'm gonna give y'all a real cut and dry, honest to God, open, transparent moment here. My daughter, not my daughter, prior to my daughter, not my daughter, my I didn't date black men, okay, for a long. I didn't date black men from teenage years up. Um, a lot of that it wasn't really so much self-hate at all for me. A lot of it was because I just didn't have great experiences with the black man that I come from. Okay, that was my views as a younger girl, and so I had a child with a white man. My ex-husband, he was a white man. My first ex-husband, and I had a different expectation, I guess, of that relationship for her because what I believed at a young age, and I'm about to be as real as possible, was that white men took better care of their children. It was displayed. It sounds crazy, cliche, whatever. It was displayed on television. It was displayed. You saw a black or a white man and they're taking care of their kids in my friends' houses that I would go over. Like, it was just displayed differently. And so I wanted that for her. And my daughter had her father. And when he went missing, not as available as he had prior been to her, it enraged me. Because the expectation that I had was falsehood. Okay, it wasn't realistic. You can't choose to be with somebody based off of the fact that they're a white man, so they're going to treat their child better, or they're going to treat their kids better. But I had that mentality early on. I didn't date black men. I would tell black men all the time, "Don't try to talk to me. I don't want you. I don't want you. Leave me alone. Leave me alone." I would had no desire, no interest whatsoever. I was attracted to them, yes, but I had no desire in my teen years to date inside my race because my father disappointed the hell out of me as a child. And I saw friends that I grew up with didn't have black fathers in the house, men just out here, having kids with everybody, doing everything. And I didn't want that. That was a very, very unrealistic viewpoint. I look at it now, and I'm sharing this because somebody else out there feels like this. Somebody else out there thinks like this. Well, I'm gonna just go get me a this color man or this color person. You know, I'm gonna just go get. They take care of their kids. A person is a person, realistically, you know, and you can't live your life and base your life in that falsehood of mentality. But that was that hurt from being a little girl that saw this, didn't see very good examples. So it was like, And then my uncles and aunties that was together, they was doing other things, extracurricular activities. So it's like, y'all don't even know how to be faithful. We don't even know how to be faithful in our culture. Like, let me go see what it's like over here. And you're going to love who you love and you're going to do what you want to do regardless. But I want people to understand when you're choosing partners or your hurt and your pain is there. It doesn't matter culturally. It doesn't matter. That is not the end all be all of your decisions on who you should be with or have children with. This is not a color thing. It's not a color cultural thing that should separate you. And I did that, you know, I didn't want to, and that's hard to say that in public. You know, that's hard to say. I knew it for so many years, but to actually be able to speak that, again, there are people out there that feel the exact same way that I felt 25 years ago, 20 years ago. So I just thought, you know, it's important to let's be transparent. Let's be real. If we're going to do podcasts, if we're women empowered and we're growing and trying to help other people, we're going to continue to grow through our experiences, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's your truth.
Yes, my truth.
I think Reggie has something to say, y'all.
Go ahead. No, keep talking.
No, go ahead.
You got it. Okay. You want me? I was gonna say, through all this conversation, I do want to give a shout out to the Black fathers. Most of the fathers I know that's in my circle, I got love for, are doing a damn thing. Excellent fathers. So we just got to pretty much, you know, bring the youth up, reach one, teach one, and you know, take it from there. But in my circle, personally, the Black fathers is the shit. I don't know if I can cuss on here, but that's the way I feel. They doing their thing, man.
That's all. That's the only one you get.
Very you know, opposite from the what word I want to say, the stereotype.
Yeah.
So just want to give them, the good brothers, a shout out.
Good. You just gotta start talking.
I am.
No, I will say there are a lot of Black fathers that do not get the recognition that they should. And that is one thing I think also with what we're doing with Women Empowered and going co-ed and wanting to work on not just only healing women, we want to heal the whole family. We want to heal the mama to the daddy to the kids to the everybody.
To the preborn, unborn,
everyone, because there are always going to be things that happen in life. Do some of us have choices for the things that we go through? Not all times, but are there a lot of things that we face in our lives that we do have choices that we can make, whether we go down this road or the other? And I think with what we're doing with Women Empowered is just trying to help people to see going down the wrong path is not going to lead you to the right things. And also having the right mind frame when you're doing things like, you know, as we were talking about meeting people at, you know, Cancun and Gabby's and all that, and sleeping with them and then having babies. It's like, you got to think like, is that even what we really need to be doing as a people? You know what I mean? Like, we really got to make better choices. Are there going to be people who do that? Of course. But if you think about women who actually have a better structure to where they know their worth, it wouldn't be a lot of that. And I'm just being honest. If I was how I am now in my 20s, I probably wouldn't have 3 children. prior to being married. You know what I mean? Like that's just, I'm just being real. Like there are decisions that we make before we actually have that full healing and full perspective of who we are as a person. So there's always going to be things that happen in our lives because of that, right? If I would have loved myself more, maybe I wouldn't have, dated a man who, a few years later, our relationship ended because of him not even, like Rashi said, being ready to be a parent, being ready to be a man in a relationship, and I think us helping ladies and men and children and teenagers to know what is your self-worth, what do you bring to any person's life, and just being able to stand on that and say like, I don't need to mess around with this person to feel like I'm whole, and then end up having a baby that is going to be in 10-15 years worried about where their dad is. You know what I mean? Like these are just things that we really need to think about that happen in life now. There are a lot of people who are just doing things with people just because they don't know who they are. And
Well,
that's
let's be honest. Having a child in today's society is like way more than even getting married. Because I can marry you today and be divorced to you tomorrow. A child is a commitment for life. We like to say for 18 years, but the reality of it is no, you're going to be a parent forever. That is a lifelong commitment, and there is no changing it or taking it back once you have that child. Like you could choose to walk away from that child and not be a part of that child's life or give up your baby for adoption. But I mean, to be able to secure yourself is if you know that you're just out casual dating. I wish I would have had somebody around at my younger years when I was 17 and I was just having casual sex. Use condoms. There's birth control. There's things to prevent that stuff from happening. And it is okay to utilize those things. I know as a Black woman, birth control isn't always my best friend. But if I know that birth control isn't my best friend as being a Black woman, then I need to make sure that the man that I'm having casual sex with is strapping up and or taking a pill himself. We have
ready to be a daddy.
all different kind of things that happen, and that pull out game is not adequate. That doesn't prevent from having children. So I think that we just have to start making better choices and having better support systems of people that are going to give you the real advice. We need to start being able to keep it 100 with ourselves first and each other. Like there should not be any reason that I'm lying to anyone about having casual sex or being in a relationship with someone. If I'm in a relationship with someone and I know deep down inside that I just don't want to have kids, I shouldn't be leading you to believe that that's what I want to do in life. I should be able to say that from the beginning, because there's somebody for everybody.
Yeah.
And you might be wasting your time by not telling the truth of what it is that your real expectation is in that relationship. Now you know inside that you're not ready to be a mother or even a father. And now you're sleeping with this person and you become pregnant or your significant other becomes pregnant, and here comes along responsibility. And responsibility comes knocking very hard and very fast. And it's not a fun or easy thing. And so it's like any other relationship. Having a child is a lot of work. It can put stress on either one of the partners, or even both of the partners, to where both of them want to just check out and be like, you know what, I'm done. It does really take a village to raise a child. I tried to do mine on my own, but at the end of the day, I realized that I couldn't. And when I met my son's father, I can say thank you to him. He was a very good man in my home that was there for all of my kids. to the point where he's still involved with all of them. Senator asked earlier, like, so what do you do when your child's father gets in a relationship where the woman is like basically running the household? I made it a fact. I made it a fact. Like my son's father, he's very gentle. I used to always tell him to, just him and I, that he doesn't have a backbone. And it's not that he doesn't have a backbone, it's just that he's very respectful to women. And he likes to think of life as a happy wife, a happy life. And so whoever he's with, that's who he considers his wife. And so he plays ball with his significant other. And if that means that she doesn't want me calling, then I'm just not, as baby mama, gonna be calling. So we figured out that there's other ways for that to work. I shouldn't have to be involved in his relationship. The only part that I need to take place until she is comfortable in his life is that I'm here for my son. And he is here for my son. So I communicate with my son about what his plans are with his father.
Mm-hmm.
My son calls his father. I don't call his father. His father calls my son. We both communicate through my son. Are we an adults to where, yes, it took place like that for quite some time. And now we're at a place where his significant other does not have a problem with me and understands that I'm just trying to raise my child here. I respect y'all, what you guys got going on. She comes over now for holidays and birthdays, and now we can take trips together and we can do all of these things. But in the beginning, you have to understand, like, if you were in a relationship with somebody that had a baby's mom or a baby's dad, it's not easy to know, like, okay, is her intentions ill, or what is she trying to do here? Like, what did you guys have going on? How long ago was it? It's not easy with all of those things. So just knowing that if you were on either side of that, how would you feel? You know, if you're the new girlfriend, how would you feel? And if you were the baby's mom, how would you feel? And trying to figure out how it is that you can be as respectful as possible.
I want him to give his perspective on that. Because when he came in, I had my baby dads. So what was your perspective on when you first came in? What did you think as far as knowing I had an ex and I had baby dads?
I mean, I didn't know nothing about him at first. And so, you know, just me just saying the respectful way, like how you used to tell me, like, you know, not have people call at a certain time, you know, and like I told you, like, you're no longer with him, so you don't need to argue with him. You don't need to do none of these things. You just here for your kids. That's it. And him doing some other stuff, now that's not being respectful, and that's when you have to take the initiative to get on that. I mean, I'm gonna always be behind you 100%, but still, that was my perspective.
And all the time, there's not going to be somebody that's going to understand that, Reggie. Like, I have a baby daddy that to this day, he called me at 3:00 in the morning to where I had to go and have a conversation with him and tell him that I need him to respect me. And he said, I respect you. You don't. If you don't respect the relationship that I am currently in, then you are not respecting me, because part of respecting me is respecting the relationship that I'm in. He said that he didn't feel as if I needed to be in that relationship because he didn't feel like the man that I'm with deserves me. That's not for you to make those decisions. You didn't do what you needed to do when we were together.
Right.
So therefore, I have moved on. And in order for us to continue to communicate, you have to be respectful. And so I had told him, if this is not something that we can work out, at this time, my daughter is 24 years old. I have no problem with cutting you off.
Ev, you want to comment on
I've actually grown from all of that. I kind of agree with Davina on some of what she said. I was used to a certain type of relationship with the father of my child, which was my ex-husband. So I can kind of understand now, like even how Davina said, I was married to this man. I had a child with this man. And then we was friends. after the fact. And so I can understand. But my big issue again was, and I admitted that earlier on to you guys, it wasn't about my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It is about myself. I'm fine with my daughter. My daughter has the father in the household. She has a relationship, whatever that relationship is with her father, when she sees him. She's got special needs, and she's got different needs and unique needs. And I think I felt that he needed to do more. But the reality of it is that she's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Leah's fine. And I'm the one who has these daddy issues with my own daddy. He ain't got nothing to do with my daughter.
Yeah.
This is something I've come to the realization. Now, 2 years ago, you had this conversation with me. It wouldn't have been the same conversation. Not even two, I say about a year and a half ago. But now I understand that this is deeper than her. Since we started this business, since we've been growing and helping other women grow, how do we grow or help other people grow if we don't grow?
Absolutely.
The reality of it is my hurt and my pain doesn't have anything to do with her father.
Mm-hmm.
That's me. This is my pain that has been afflicted upon me from the relationship with my own father. Deal with your issues, and that goes back to the beginning of what we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If people have dealt with their issues and actually been able to mature through their own issues, how they felt about their own pain and hurt with men, we would have better, our daughters would have better chances, or us as daughters would have had better chances to have better relationships with men.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're conditioned to think about the hurt that we went through and put that onto our children, that is their hurt. So now I'm hurt, I'm cut, and so now I'm gonna cut you, and then you're cut, and everybody's just bleeding all over everybody, as opposed to somebody putting a Band-Aid on it and stopping the wound. Like, I had to realize, nope, I'm not gonna do it to my daughter. I'm not gonna put on to my daughter has like I said, she has a father in the household, and she has her father. And whatever that relationship is with her father, I don't intervene in it. I don't get in the middle of it. She has her own cell phone. Though she doesn't communicate by herself, I help her communicate. And that's how it needs to be. I'm not going to because I know that it's about me. And I'm not going to put that onto her. Because that again goes back to what we started talking about in the beginning. What is the domino effect? How does it become a domino effect?
I can tell you that. So I want to challenge each one of us on here to say, if you were to be able to go back, seeing as that this domino effect is about our parents and our currents, for each one of us to say, if we could get our father to do one thing for us, if we could reverse time and tell our father one thing that we needed at that time, and if we could come back to current to tell our significant other one thing that we need at that time. We already know what us as women's faults are, because we were feeling as if we lacked. But I think that if the men here can hear what it is that us women and other men actually need as a child, and then our men can hear what us women need even as adults, I think that we could start somewhere of giving somebody an idea of what it is that they either need to give their children today or their women today. And I think that if I could reverse time, the one thing that I would say to my dad that I needed more of is I needed more of his time. I didn't feel like I ever got any of his time. I was seen and not heard. And I felt like, as me being a little girl, I needed my father desperately. I had my mom, but I didn't feel like I had that with my dad. And so to be able to have that probably would have given me a lot more strength in life. I probably would have done 100 other great things in life. Not taking away from him of who he is. I think my dad is an amazing man, but if he would have gave me more time, I would have been better. For my significant other today, all I wish and I need and I hope for is support. I just want to be heard and for somebody to support it.
You want to go next?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna get emotional talking about what I needed from my dad.
I was almost there.
I seen your eyes. Whew. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of what I needed from my dad, just don't leave me. The marriage didn't work, so don't leave me too. And that's what happened. And unfortunately, you know, being a 15-year-old, going from seeing your dad every single day, having a closer relationship with your dad than your mom. And I'm like this with my mom. Anybody that knows me knows me and my mom are thick as thieves. Going from having a best friend to now my parents get divorced and I don't see you at all was a heartbreak for me. It definitely was.
And what do you need from your significant other?
I just need him to continue being the best version of himself. He definitely has made a lot of improvements throughout these 6 years, and I'm definitely proud of the man that he's become, the father he's become. I just want him to stay being that genuine person. I never want any situation to change him, because sometimes life can happen and people can change based on situations. I never want him to do that with me. Yeah.
What would you tell your dad you needed, Reggie?
Like I say, my dad, he was always active, but what I would tell him is like I wish he would have made better decisions with his life, you know, because I had to learn a lot of stuff on my own, you know, and he taught me a lot of stuff too. I can't take that from him too, but the stuff that I wanted him to change that, you know, sometimes would have hurted me as a kid was like he knew what he was doing, you know, but that's just that my dad was always just that street dude, so I picked up on that on a lot of situations. So if I could go back and tell him that, like, make better decisions, because I mean I didn't choose to live that, and I'm never gonna show my son that. I show him a different way on how to do things and how to get money and all that type of stuff. But that's what I would have told him.
What would you ask from your significant other?
I would ask for myself and the other. I mean, I don't have too much to, you know, just for her to still stay focused, you know, for her to let go of whatever hurting her and keep moving, you know, because you could if you keep burying that hurt, it's gonna always be there. You gotta find some way to let it go. You gotta find some way to think about different things that you could do to improve yourself. Like I tell all the time, like we got this thing where every Sunday we tell each other what we did during the week, what we improved during the week, and what we can do during the next week. Because my grandfather had that, so I always tell it like, you know, just keep going. Like you might have somebody that might hate on y'all podcast or might hate on you. Like don't let that affect you. Just keep going. I know sometimes it is hard. You might want to defend yourself and stuff like that, but just learn how to do that. But other than that, I really don't have too much.
How about you, Rashi? What would you tell your dad?
Honestly, I personally think he's an excellent father. I can't think of nothing at all.
Is there anything you felt like you were lacking?
I mean, he's super smart, so he taught me. I mean, just a lot of stuff. Just, I mean, the time, like we spent a lot of time playing sports, doing pretty much everything. I mean, he's a stand-up dude. I try to model my father ways, for lack of a better term, after him. I mean, he raised kids that wasn't biologically his. I mean, just he's a stand-up dude. I don't know. He need a pat on the back because I don't. I mean, from others looking in, they might see some, but while I'm in it, being his son, I don't really see. He might have been, which I got thick skin. He might have been a little hard on me when I was young, but that don't. I'm the same way with my kids, so I don't. And I do show some type of sensitivity as well, but overall, it's out of love. But yeah, nothing. And as far as my spouse, just continue to support and never give up on me. I mean, everything. I told you you was the GOAT. I've never met a human like Ebony. Like, I mean, she's the creme of the creme. Yeah, she has, like, we've been through this conversation, issues with, her father or whatnot, but, I overlooked that. I look at her, her heart and spirit. And I mean, y'all know as well as I do what type of person she is. So just continue to support, never give up on me. And you know what I'm referring to.
I'm going to still paddle back to you, though, Rashi. Seeing as that you weren't lacking of anything, can you kind of tell the audience?
It's really on my mom, honestly. That it wasn't my dad, it was my mom. Well, my mom was like early on in Chicago, it was, when they were together, everything was all good. They ended up separating, and he ended up moving out. And I know we lived in Milwaukee for a few years, and progressively she got just worse and worse. She was manic depressive schizophrenic, and we were poor as dirt. I mean, poor. Like, I literally had to steal and do all kind of stuff just to get a meal. And I really don't blame her, because you can't help that. I mean, you had a mental illness, you know what I'm saying? So, I do want to mention something. I forgot to tell Ebony today. Something happened today. I can tell that I'm missing a grandmother or motherly figure, because I drive for Lyft. I had gave these two ladies a ride today, and one of them, she had like this African outfit on or whatnot. She had to be probably like in her late 60s, probably about what my mom would have been, close to like 70-ish. And before she got out, we got to talking about like Ghana and Africa and other stuff. And I showed her a picture of Evan. She's like, "Oh my gosh, she's beautiful. She looks like she's Ghanaian." I'm like, "She probably is. Most of us come from Western Africa through the transatlantic slave trade." But she's like, "How many kids you got?" And I told her. She's like, "Ooh, like that's what we put here for, to procreate." And she said something like, "I'm so happy and proud of you." And I got like this weird chill, like I needed to hear that from like a motherly figure. Like, I don't, what I'm saying? I don't know how to describe it. I was just like, I felt like, dang, like, like if your mom hugged you and said, "I'm proud of you, baby." Cause I ain't never had that. Cause she wasn't in the right state of mind. So
that's not what I was talking about, though. I was doubling back on you so that you could tell the audience of what qualities your father gave you. That way, then some gentlemen would have some idea, seeing as that you are the one on here that wouldn't need to double back to ask your father for anything. Can you tell us what qualities he gave you so that some of these gentlemen would know what they need to give their sons?
Be there for your kids, man. My dad didn't have a ton of money, but he did, which I definitely got to be. He taught me how to hustle legally hustle. There's no excuse. Go out there and get it for your family. be there for your family, whether they're biologically attached to you or not. Just being a stand-up dude and time. Again, like I said, he ain't had the most money, but time. We played baseball together, we rode our bikes. You know, we laugh and giggle, we joke around, just and you know, just teaching me things scholastically, you know what I'm saying? Just I mean, like I say, he's a stand-up dude. I can't think of nothing that I'm really, I mean, lacking as far as learning from him.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's that dude. He can get a little too unfiltered sometimes, but that's another thing. He did, you know, speak your mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's major. Don't do the passive aggressive. Tell exactly how you feel, and you know whatever comes after that, that's what comes. I'm tripping. My bad. I got to talk about my mom. Thinking about, you know, that's who.
No,
that was great.
Good.
That was great.
That too.
Yep.
Us mothers need to know also what our sons need, just as well as the fathers need to know what we need as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we all was in the house together, my brothers and sisters, and everything was, you know, all good. But you know, once they separated it, you know, she started slowly but surely getting sick, you know, mentally, and just to see her, like, because she was a heavy set woman, but due to her mental sickness of not eating and just to see somebody lose weight like that and skin flabby, it just, you know, just looked unhealthy. So it was, you know, it's a lot more to it, but that's for another day, I guess.
Yeah.
Big McReynolds.
Thank you.
We are overtime, y'all. Any takeaways?
We're gonna go to Eb. Eb has to still.
Eb gotta go. My bad.
I love you.
We could have skipped it. I didn't really mind.
No, you gotta answer it
because everybody needs to know what it is that we all.
No, I mean, if we are over time, and that's. I mean, this is fine that we went over time. This was a very different type of topic, and
yeah,
definitely. Can you ask the question again?
If you could go back into time and tell your father something that you needed him to give you, and then can you come back to your current and tell your significant other also what you need from them?
Security. My father and I had a really, really dope relationship up until I was 4. And I remember, I think I have a good memory the way that I do, because I want to hold on to a time in my life where I had that, you know. Being secure as I was growing up, I mean, my mom had relationships, but being able to feel that security, that safety, that protectiveness from my father, I didn't have that. I turned into a fighter. I just didn't have that. So those are things that I feel that I need is protection and security to feel safe. I have heavy anxiety due to that. I think that's a part of it. So to feel safe and secure.
And if from your significant other?
The same. Not having that, and then having chosen relationships that didn't provide that all of my life. I need for you to just keep me safe, keep me secure, love me like my heart, like cherish and treasure it, take care of it, nurture it from a man's perspective, because I need that. So
No doubt.
I love this.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
good.
no.
I was going to ask everybody one takeaway that you would tell a young mother or father or even a teenager. If someone is watching this right now, or they're watching the recording later on YouTube, or they're watching the recording later on Facebook, what is one takeaway you would say to someone that could alter their outlook on either Black men, Black women, fatherhood, motherhood, just all in general? What would be one takeaway you would say to someone?
Black men, listen. The Black woman is God's greatest creation. Take care of her.
I like that. You want to go next?
I would say decisions and learning. Learn your situation and pick a better decision on what you should do.
That's good. I like that. Davina?
My one takeaway is that had I known that really it takes a village to raise a child, I would have done so a lot sooner. It is the best thing ever. We need to start putting our feelings to the side when we are recreating and think about our children and what it is that our children need. Our children need security, safety, time, loving, caring, passionate, humbled individuals to be around them. Those are all qualities that children absolutely need, and they're not going to get it standing in the middle of a war. So we need to take them off of these battlefields, and we need to protect them. We need to guide them more properly. We need to start looking at our children as fragile packages, because that is exactly what they are. They are very fragile. And I think that if we could start doing better by one another and start looking at the bigger picture of it all and playing our parts and doing our jobs, I think our children will be at a better pace in life of not committing suicide and not out here killing one another and doing all of these other things. Like at the end of the day, there used to be a commercial saying like, our children are our future. It is the truth. Our children are our future, and we all have to do better now.
All right. Eb?
Black women, stop bleeding on your children. Start to find ways to clean up the blood and bandage the wound, and don't stop bleeding on your children. Stop cutting your children and bleeding on your children. We got to stop it somewhere. We have to put an end to the generational continuance of this issue of hurt and pain that we are bestowing upon our daughters and our sons. Stop bleeding on your children.
All right. Well, my takeaway is going to be for the young teenagers. Find out who you are and love the mess out of yourself. Don't allow anyone to tell you you are less than, and become the greatest version of yourself. Because you will be who takes care of us when we get older. We're looking at you for our future. So be the best that you can be. And we all have faith in you that you can do that.
I want to piggyback off of that. I always tell my daughters, ever since they was young, their core values, that they're lovable, valuable, important, and always keep that, in you, no matter what. Don't let no man tell you you ain't this, you ain't that. Always. Always keep that.
But don't be telling no man that either.
Yeah.
I said, but don't be telling no man that either.
Yeah.
Telling them what?
That they ain't
no
nothing.
good. Yeah.
Oh no.
So
No.
just
I'm
like
just saying. I'm
like
just saying, like there's, you know, it can start with low self-esteem and letting, you know, various men tell them they ain't nothing, so they, you know, they don't feel like nothing. They gonna do anything.
You're right about
And
that.
giving it, you know, they just, you know, start with loving yourself, like you said, just
start with
and
loving
yeah,
yourself,
and
I would say. But I would also tell our teenagers that maybe not right now will you understand the importance of being a team with someone. But when you grow older, you will understand like it is an amazing thing to have a teammate under your roof fighting the same cause that you are fighting.
yeah.
I agree. I agree 100%. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. This was amazing. We definitely got to do more of these with different topics. Anyone who is tuned in to the live, we appreciate you spending time with us. If you're watching the recording, we appreciate you as well. Otherwise, we will see y'all next week with our next topic. And much more to come. We have our Hot Seat Saturday this Saturday, so be tuned in for that. What?
Keep going.
She was talking to Rashi.
Oh, you could be tuned in for that Hot Seat Saturday. And then Saturday, we are having our interactive workshop. So if you have not asked any information about that, you guys, that is our last free interactive event that we're having. So please check our page for that. We have limited space, so you definitely want to come out for that. That is for approval addiction. It's going to be a great topic and so much more to come. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.